Welcome into Fantasy Football Academy 2020. I am the Dean, and I'm here with kind of a special edition of Mock Draft Monday. I know most of the time I sit here and we talk about fantasy football and we discuss strategy and we go through a mock draft and I tell you what players to look at, and that's great. But with everything going on in the world today, between COVID and the social injustice that's happened from everything that went on in Minnesota with the murder of George Floyd, I wanted to reach out to the subscribers that I have and anyone who happens upon this video. I went to church, and as thankfully we were able to here a couple of weeks ago for the first time in person, as we went into phase 2 here in Louisiana. And Pastor spoke briefly on what was going on in the world, and he brought up a very good point, is that there's a lot of people out there with opinions. We all have an opinion about what happened in Minnesota with George Floyd and with the family of those who were involved. And everyone's, like I said, everyone's got an opinion, but nobody's asking the right questions. We're all pointing fingers. We're all saying this person's wrong and that person's wrong. In the coming weeks and months, as you follow the NFL primarily, you're going to hear a lot about kneeling, a lot about disrespecting the flag or disrespecting the troops or things like that. If you don't know, I'm a big movie guy, and the American President, there was, with Michael Douglas, there was a great speech that he gave at the end, and he talked about how American citizenship is advanced citizenship, that you have to be prepared to have someone with an opposite opinion screaming at you at the top of your lungs while you defend your opinion at the top of yours. We're at a time now where everyone was shocked or hurt or angered by what we saw. Will Smith said something in the midst of all this, is that racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed. I have this question for you, and I want you to take this with you throughout your day. If you can look yourself in the eye, you look in the mirror, and you can honestly tell yourself that you've done all you can for your fellow man, regardless of race, regardless of social status, have you done everything you can to better this world that we live in? Now, if this incident had happened in any other country, it would have just been another death by a brutal police force controlled by the government, and we would have been outraged in America. We wouldn't have been hurt. We wouldn't have been as angry as we were. We just been upset because it happened in another country. But because it happened here, and because we live under the stars and stripes that millions of men and women have fought and died for, we have the right, we have the freedom, we have the ability to voice our opinion how we see fit and say what we want when we want. Now, while we're saying this, I encourage you to remember something that I tell my children pretty much all the time: that God gave us one mouth and two ears for a reason. That means that He wants us to listen twice as much as we talk. See, here in America and pretty much around the world right now with social media, everyone feels like they have a right to voice their opinion and that their opinion is the one that's right. But we're not listening to each other. I'm going to ask you today, regardless of whether you wear a badge or you don't, whether you dress in blue or you dress in whatever color you wear, whether your skin is a different color, it's a different shade, remember that when we peel all of this back, we're the same underneath. That the American flag must mean more than just one thing for everyone. It must mean everything for all of us. So, I know this episode's kind of been a little different, but I hope that it's spawned a little something in you. Maybe it's brought up a question. Maybe it's given you a little chance to pause and say, hey, I haven't done my part. Now, my 16-year-old asked me when all the rioting started, what does robbing and burning and stealing things have to do with social injustice? I don't have an answer for him. What I can tell you is that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be hurt. But let's make sure that we're directing that in the right way. Let's make sure that the change that we're looking for starts with each and every one of us. My pastor said that if you can look at my history, you look at what I've done, you walk a day in my life, and you see that he isn't racist, can you say the same about yourself? I grew up around Washington, D.C. I've worked with all shades of people. I've come into contact with lesbian, gay men, transgendered, and the way that I was raised was you treat everyone the way you want to be treated, regardless of what their views are, regardless of where they come from, regardless of who they are. Remember, the atrocity, the murder that happened in Minnesota, when you boil it down to its base level, was one human killed another human. So, let's come together, guys. I think it's about all we can say. So, for this episode of Fantasy Football Academy 2020, I've been the Dean, and tune in next time, and I promise we will have some fantasy football info for you. Till then, remember, listen twice as much as you speak.